You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristadoulou.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristadoulou, and today with Monday Night Football wrapping up just about, I would say, 7-8 hours or so before you're probably seeing this debut, we are diving into our power rankings for week number 4 following a wild week number 3 of the NFL. So make sure you comment down below. Give me your thoughts and opinions on this past weekend's games. Let me know your power rankings. What are your thoughts on my power rankings? But we are diving right in, starting from the bottom and working our way up to the top with the bottom 4 teams. A lot of shuffling has gone on this week, especially at the bottom, beginning with the Denver Broncos sitting all the way in the basement at number 32. The Chicago Bears are sitting at 31. The Carolina Panthers are at number 30. And then the Las Vegas Raiders sitting at number 29. So Denver Broncos, I don't really think I need to say too much about them. You let 70 points get dropped on your head. Halfway through the game, it just looked like they basically ran out of steam and were ready to go home. It was an absolute beatdown. Sean Payton is eating his words, and it is a circus right now in Denver, and that's probably putting it lightly. At number 31, we have the Chicago Bears, which, to be honest, are kind of in the same exact boat. I mean, they got absolutely walloped by the Kansas City Chiefs. That you bring in the backups, and even the backups were still playing really well for KC against Chicago. Again, another team that is just really in a bad spot right now, especially considering how high the expectations were being set for Chicago coming into the season, to now fall 0-3 in an absolutely ugly fashion like this past weekend. There's rumors swirling about their thoughts and opinions on Justin Fields and his ability to quarterback the team going into the future. It does not look good in Chicago. At number 30, we have ourselves the Carolina Panthers, who climbed themselves up 2 spots. They were sitting at the bottom last week, and I've got to give them credit. They hung in there this week. They didn't get completely obliterated, and for that, you earn yourself a spot moving up a couple of places, especially playing without Bryce Young. Andy Dalton got the start in this game here, so hats off to them for not getting obliterated like the 2 people below them there. You were sitting at number 32 for just a singular week, but a solid performance nonetheless going up against the Seattle Seahawks. Again, hats off to Carolina. You didn't get blown out. You don't deserve to be at the bottom of the board. And then at number 29, to round out the very bottom 4 teams here, we are looking at the Las Vegas Raiders, where it just seems like this is a team that it's led by Josh McDaniels. That's probably the best way that I could put this. I can't believe, and I saw some other people say this too, and this has been my feeling the whole time, and I'm sorry, Raiders fans, but at this point, it just needs to be said. I can't believe that the Raiders saw what Josh McDaniels did in Denver, their own division rival, and they thought, yeah, we want that on our team. And I understand, all the success he had as an offensive coordinator over in New England, but there was a lot of pros working in his favor, whether it's all around just talent that he was working with, complete bona fide Hall of Famers, best quarterback to play football, arguably the best tight end to play football. He had excellent talent on top of that as well, working under Bill Belichick's system. The Raiders are hurting. Devontae Adams is clearly getting fed up with the issues based off of what he said in postgame. And, I have no words for the field goal that they ended up taking instead of trying to go for the game-tying score. I don't really know what the thought process is behind that. Somebody needs to sit Josh McDaniels down and have him play some Madden, because I'm starting at this point, maybe question some of his situational decision-making, and I have no words for that field goal attempt at the end of the game. A very big head scratcher for me, and I'm sorry, because this is kind of what I expected out of Josh McDaniels before he got hired and was brought in from Las Vegas, and through a year and 3 weeks now, it's looking exactly how I expected it to, and I don't think it's going to get any better. Next 4 teams we're looking at, New York Jets are sitting at number 28. They slipped down a couple of spots here. The Texans moved themselves up the board with a big win this past weekend at number 27. We have the Arizona Cardinals sitting at number 26. They worked themselves up a few spots as well. And the New York Giants falling even further down the boards here at number 25. So looking at the New York Jets, 15-10 loss to the New England Patriots, I've got to say, it really sucks that they're in the situation that they are because they have such a talented defense, and it really is an offense that was built to work around Aaron Rodgers, and now dealing with the loss of him and some of the issues that they're having with the offensive line needing to be reworked because of issues and injuries that they're dealing with there as well. The offense is just a big cluster butt F, if that's the best way to put it. And another team that I just feel for, because this is such a great defense, and there's some really great skill talent on the offense as well. And at this point, the Jets need to consider looking for a quarterback, because if they don't, they're going to fumble away another year of just really good talent littered throughout their roster. Granted, there's an issue or two again. Offensive line, beyond the quarterback issue, offensive line, a little bit of concern with the injuries, but beyond that, this is a talented roster being wasted away, and I really hate to see that for New York. At 27, the Houston Texans, coming away with a win that, while it was shocking initially, the more I sit here and sit on it, it's almost not too shocking. The Jaguars' offense has been struggling. The Houston Texans' defense was probably the bright spot of the team last year, and it seems like they're kind of continuing to build off what they started last year with DeMeco Ryans now leading the way over there in Houston. But on top of that, the offense, C.J. Stroud, unbelievable effort by him. Dameon Pierce looked really good despite the issues that they're dealing with on the offensive line as well. And then Tank Dell looking like Tank Dell from the preseason, starting to now carry over into the regular season. Good at football, and it's really exciting to see what's boiling over there in Houston. I did write them off early, but they play the AFC South teams really, really well. They got a massive shock upset over the Jacksonville Jaguars, and now have a good opportunity sitting at 1-2, tied with both the Tennessee Titans and now the Jacksonville Jaguars, to maybe make a little bit of noise in the South. At 26, we're looking at the Arizona Cardinals, and you want to talk about taking an opponent into your home, like the Dallas Cowboys, riding high to massive victories, reading all the news clippings clearly. Maybe we're looking beyond the game that they had here this week, because no one expected the Cardinals to be putting up quite the fight that they did and just socking the Dallas Cowboys in the mouth. Hats off to Arizona. From the very beginning of that game, Arizona took control and never let it go. From start to finish, I felt like the defense for Dallas was just reeling the entire game. Nobody expected Josh Dobbs and company to come out the way they did and just explode from the very first drive all the way to the end, being able to shut down the Dallas Cowboys offense and make them look nothing like the number one team that everyone, even myself included, were spouting off about just last week. So hats off to the Arizona Cardinals. Well-earned, well-deserved victory, one that nobody saw coming. I literally said that I did not see any way possible for them to win this game, and the only possible way was to just take advantage of a team sleepwalking into the matchup, and they absolutely did it. At number 25, the New York Giants, another blowout loss, this time to the San Francisco 49ers, and this is one that it's really starting to look like just the offensive line still being an issue. Obviously, minus Saquon Barkley, another big issue for this team. He is the engine of this offense, and honestly, with the way things looked offensively for the Giants this past week, I'm really starting to sit here and think that he is worth every single penny he was asking for the New York Giants, more so than anyone else. Like, yes, he could probably hit the open market and make some decent money, but I think he's worth even more to the Giants. And at this point, I know he got a little extra money going into the season with that 1-year extension, but for the sake of the Giants going forward, I think locking up Saquon Barkley, even if it is just like a 2 or 3 year term beyond just this season, is probably in their best interest here. And I'm not really so sure about the Daniel Jones contract signing anymore. I know last year looked really good for him with the turnover reduction and everything, and as far as that went, just really good, sound decision-making, but the offense was not necessarily something I ever really bought into. I just respected the fact that they were playing really clean, sound football, and now the way they've looked through 3 weeks, abysmal, not really inspiring, minus Saquon Barkley looking really good whenever he was touching the football, and it's very clear that they need him on the field. At number 24, we are looking at the Minnesota Vikings. At 23, the New England Patriots. At 22, we have the New Orleans Saints. And then at 21, we have ourselves the Tennessee Titans. So at number 24, the Minnesota Vikings. Once again, turnovers. That is the story. And even just like downright unfortunate turnovers. The double-tipped interception to seal their loss against the Chargers this week. You were at the goal line. You had an opportunity to take the game away and catch the W, and it just was not happening. And it's really unfortunate because I feel like the Vikings have played so much better than an 0-3 team, but they went from being a team that won every single score game last season to now they cannot buy a break, and it's just... the ball's not bouncing their way. That's the best way I can put it. I feel like this team, in my heart, is better than 0-3, but unfortunately, they are 0-3, but I would say they are the best winless team right now in the NFL, and on top of that, I think they're better than some of the 1-2 teams as well. At 23, we're looking at the New England Patriots, who notched their first victory here. It was a messy game altogether. I mean, the weather obviously not helping what was going on through the northeastern region of the U.S. So, I mean, and there was a lot of games, honestly, on the eastern side of the country that dealt with a lot of weather stuff going on this past weekend here. But obviously, the Patriots and Jets being one of them. While not a pretty game offensively, it was clean enough that they were able to hold off the Jets, who offensively are just like anemic right now. The defense looked really, really good, very impressive. Just from start to finish, shutting things down, not letting the Jets really get any sort of anything going. And Christian Gonzalez looks like the real deal. Somebody that I'm glad to see excel the way he is, because I know a lot of people talked about his physicality in the pre-draft process and leading up to that, and how he might not have quite what it takes to be that cornerback one, and he wasn't going to be able to be physical enough. He has done an excellent job holding Garrett Wilson for, I believe what I saw was only 3 receptions for 32 yards whenever he lined up across from him. He's done a really good job and is honestly at this point putting himself into the conversation for Defensive Rookie of the Year, so definitely keep an eye on that. But as long as the Patriots are playing really strong, sound defense, they can take care of some of the lesser teams in the NFL. It's just a matter if they can find the offense that they need to be able to keep up with some of the higher scoring teams, because you're not going to win games like this 15-10 every single week. Like, yes, Bill Belichick is going to go up against those more inexperienced quarterbacks or coaches and be able to coach circles around them, especially defensively, but they need to be able to find the points necessary to be able to succeed. At number 22, we're looking at the New Orleans Saints, and I had people bring this up to me last week, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more now this week, especially. Last week, I had the Titans above the Saints, and obviously I have the Titans still above the Saints here at number 21, and then the Saints at 22. I have the Saints a little bit lower than I probably would have had them had Derek Carr not gone down with that AC joint injury, but now losing him, that offense literally went from we're up 17-0, having a really good game, to just flat nothing. I'm a little bit concerned about this New Orleans Saints team minus Derek Carr, and I wasn't necessarily super inspired with what they had going on up until this point, and it sucks that you lose Derek Carr as soon as Alvin Kamara is coming back. So now we just kind of have to play the waiting game and see what's going on here. For anyone that thinks the Saints should probably be ranked higher than the Titans, sure, you know what? It's a fair argument, absolutely. But right now, losing your starting quarterback definitely does not help your team. Saints defense still a really good unit, but with an offense that literally just screeched to a halt and put it in park once Derek Carr went down. Little concerned with how this team is going to look for the duration of however long this injury takes for Derek Carr to heal. And then the Titans at 21, absolute just shellacking by the Browns. I've got to say, you made the Browns look offensively like something we have not seen since Deshaun Watson took the reins over as far as quarterback is concerned in Cleveland. And I've got to say, hats off to Cleveland for coming into this game right off the heels of a tough Monday night loss, where not only you lost the game, but you also lost yourself your best running back, and probably arguably, I guess I should say, one of the best running backs in the NFL, if not the best running back considered by some. So hats off to them. But the Titans, man, it's just that offense could not buy a break. The offensive line issues are continuing to be a problem for the Titans here. And something that I talked about leading into this season was just the concern that, like, the clock is ticking on some of the veterans that you have here that have played really well for your team, one of them being Derrick Henry. He has struggled in terms of breaking tackles this year. He's not bouncing off defenders the way he's used to, or he usually does. And on top of that, Ryan Tannehill, I feel like, continues to regress. So 2 key pieces to your offense, along with offensive line woes, it's just not looking really good. And a defense that it just kind of feels like they're trying to hold up their end of the bargain, but the offense is clearly not. A team that's kind of falling apart right now. I hate that for Tennessee because, again, I'm a big Mike Vrabel guy, even though I'm a Colts fan, big Mike Vrabel guy, but things are not looking good in Tennessee right now. Next up, at number 20, we're looking at the LA Rams, who just dropped a big game to the Cincinnati Bengals last night. We have ourselves the Cincinnati Bengals at number 19, the Washington Commanders at number 18, and then the Los Angeles Chargers at number 17. So, at number 20, the Rams. Too little, too late. You basically made the comeback, but just with not enough time left on the clock, and you fall short 3 points, losing 19-16 in a game that was very winnable. Defense did a really good job continuing to give the Cincinnati Bengals offensive issues, and I mean, the biggest thing for me right now that LA needs to figure out, the Rams that is to get more pressure beyond just Aaron Donald. It feels like when Aaron Donald isn't in there, you basically just have a bunch of guys fighting your opponent's offensive line. But when Aaron Donald comes in, things look a lot better, a lot more disruptive, and it really helps out a very youthful whoever's not basically playing on the defensive line, because you have so many young players over there in LA. But offensively, just not a great night. And I think a lot of credit goes to the defense of the Cincinnati Bengals. They are a really good unit, and this was probably one of their better games that they've had so far this season. So hats off to them. Really impressive showing and giving the Rams fits, considering they've been pretty good the last couple of weeks here. But just an ugly day altogether. Turnovers, the tipped interception by Logan Wilson had 2 interceptions on the night, but the tipped one was really the backbreaker that finished things off. And it just ugly night by the offense, and the Rams defense doing a really good job. If I could ask for anything else, it's just an improved pass rush beyond Aaron Donald. At number 19, the Bengals, as I just mentioned, defensively, outstanding performance, shutting things down, making things difficult for Matthew Stafford. There was one sack that was unbelievable on Matthew Stafford, and I can't believe he got up the way he did. So I've got to say, I believe it's Dax Hill, the one that was just absolutely creamed Stafford. It was like he wasn't even seeing it coming. So hats off to the Bengals for just giving them fits from start to finish. Hendrickson was a menace, creating pressure. Again, Logan Wilson with the 2 interceptions there. Offensively, not a great night altogether. Joe Burrow clearly still dealing with his injury. I don't think he's 100%. I think it was very obvious he's not 100%. On top of that, T. Higgins, handful of drops. It was just a very ugly game offensively for both sides. At number 18, Washington Commanders, completely blown out of the water by the Buffalo Bills. 4 interceptions from Sam Howell, one of them being a pick 6. They just never stood a chance. I really liked the little story we had brewing with the Commanders being 2-0, but I picked the Bills very handedly in this game here, and I'm not too shocked at the final scoreline, because for what it's worth, you have to look at the 2 wins that the Commanders had coming into this game. You have one over the Arizona Cardinals, not necessarily lighting the world on fire right now, although they did just come off a massive victory against the Cowboys. And you also had the Denver Broncos, who just let a 70-burger get whopped all over them. So, I mean, it is what it is. They're clearly a budding team that's finding its way, I would say, right now. They're trending in the right direction. A lot of good coming out of the Commanders, especially considering where this team has been the last few years. They're not quite there yet. I think that was kind of a comeback down to earth moment, and so I'm fine with them at 18. At number 17, I have the Chargers. I believe I dropped them one spot here, if I'm not mistaken. This was one of those games where it just... Brandon Staley, man, this is someone that just... I can't believe is still a head coach in the NFL. Not even because, like... How are you calling to go for it when you're, at your own, 24-yard line on 4th down, and then you fail the conversion, and you literally put the Vikings in prime position to steal this victory? It felt like they were trying to lose the game. I don't understand what the thought process was on that. And listen, the Chargers win, so I don't want to take too much away from that, but my God, the situational awareness sometimes of Brandon Staley leaves me scratching my head way more often than I think it should for somebody that's a head coach in the NFL. I don't know. There are some people coaching in the NFL right now that, again, I think need to sit down and just play some Madden and gain a little bit of situational awareness, because I know there's a lot going on the sideline, but there is like very simple things that you should and should not do. And sometimes you see them happening, like that 4th down when you have the lead, and just punt the ball away and trust in your defense. But that is my rant. Chargers, you got the W. You nearly gave it away, but you weathered the storm at the end, came away with the interception for the W. Just punt the ball on 4th down when you're inside your own 25. That's all I'm saying. Working into the top half of the NFL, though, at number 16, we got ourselves the Indianapolis Colts, a team that I did not expect to have as high as I do right now. But defensively, this team has really come alive, and I'm kind of surprised. But again, another one of those things where the more I think about it, the more I'm not so surprised, because Shaq Leonard leading that defense, they're healthy. They look really good right now. I feel like this defense minus Shaq Leonard, it's like missing kind of the heart and soul of the team. And with him in there being able to lead his troops into battle, this was a defense that was really good when he was in a couple of years ago. And I mean, he's called the Maniac for a reason, but then you have guys like Zaire Franklin that are also looking really, really good right now as well. Pressure coming from the defensive line as well. I'm really impressed with what this group is able to do. I didn't expect them to bounce back as quickly. I'm obviously well aware of their past success, especially being a Colts fan, but I'm really impressed with what they're doing. Offensively, got to give it to Gardner Minshew. He's an excellent backup, one of the best backups in the NFL, if not possibly the best backup in the NFL. A guy that you can plug in, he can win you games, and he's not going to lose you a game as well. For him to come in, and it was ugly, it wasn't a pretty win by any means, but to be able to come in and steal a victory over a Baltimore Ravens team that I just did not think they'd be able to overcome, and you did what you had to do to get the victory. Colts are sitting at 2-1 right now at the top of the AFC South. Did not expect that at all, but here we are. Hats off to Indy for that one. At 15, we're looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This was one where I didn't really expect Tampa Bay to come with the victory. I kind of looked at this in the similar vein of the way I did like with the Commanders going into their matchup against the Buffalo Bills. They're going up against a far better opponent than what they were running into the last couple of weeks, even though I did say the Vikings, I say, are probably the best team without a win right now and better than even some of the teams that only have one at the moment here. They're a team that just can't get out of their own way. I don't want to take too much away from Tampa Bay, but the talent level was clearly far outweighed on Philadelphia's end here. And the Eagles at this point, they're really starting to find themselves. I know they're not winning pretty football, but they're just like pounding people into submission right now with physicality, and it's really fun to watch. I know it's not the sexiest thing to watch, and some people are going to have, their thoughts and opinions about where the Eagles should be in these rankings, but they're a team that'll grind you down, and they basically wore away the entire, from defense to offense, everything. The Eagles just a little too overwhelming for them. A team, again, that is fairly talented. They are 2-1 right now, but they're in a bit of a transition, and it was clear going up against a team that is more in the Super Bowl conversation. At 14, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Talk about taking a tumble. I had them at 7 last week. I dropped them down to 14. Another team that just could not get out of their own way, whether it was penalties, turnovers, self-inflicted wounds, special teams failing. I mean, just not being able to do anything in terms of taking care of the football or taking care of drives and sustaining drives. And then the special teams, again, blocked field goal. That obviously was a disaster as well. And then on the defensive side of the ball, it just felt like you kind of almost gave up. Like you let CJ Stroud just completely torch you again. Tank Dell, monster catch. Dameon Pierce, who has not really done a ton behind an offensive line that's been really struggling, especially with injuries the first few weeks of this season. Dameon Pierce had his best game of the season so far. There was a lot that I walked away from this game just kind of scratching my head, because this is not the Jacksonville Jaguars team I expected to see through 3 weeks now at this point. I feel like week 1, we got kind of a glimpse of like what this Jaguars team should be. And the last couple of weeks, they have just been stumbling all over the place. So hopefully they can collect themselves. I still have them as high as I do because I believe in them at this moment. You could argue maybe they belong a little bit lower, but I just think the talent level on this team, from the roster to coaching, I'm not comfortable putting them down too low just yet. And on top of that, while they are 1-2 and Indy's 2-1, they did beat Indianapolis in the season opener. So there is that kind of holding them up a little bit higher than maybe you might expect to see them. And then at 13, the Cleveland Browns, who, again, best offensive performance they've had this season and since the Deshaun Watson era officially kicked off. If you've been watching my channel for however long now, you know I do not believe in this whole Deshaun Watson experiment. And somehow, some way, the Tennessee Titans made it look like he was worth every single bit of that $250 or 30 some odd million dollars, whatever it is that he's getting paid right now, that he's fully guaranteed for. Aside from a couple of things that I was scratching my head at, Deshaun Watson throwing the football backwards, but other than that, overall, really great game. The defense over there in Cleveland is a literal nightmare for offenses. And if anything is going to happen this season that I think is going to hold true from now to the end of the season, regardless of what's going on offensively in Cleveland, this defense is going to drag this team kicking and screaming to potentially a playoff berth. Even if you don't win your division, they could certainly lock up a 7 or 6 or 5 seed just off of how good this defense is alone. It is a literal nightmare for teams to deal with right now, and they put it on a full show for everyone to see against the Tennessee Titans. Next 4 teams. At number 12, we're looking at the Atlanta Falcons. At 11, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. At 10, we have the Green Bay Packers. And then at number 9, we have the Baltimore Ravens. So at number 12, the Atlanta Falcons, offensively, just kind of shut down by the Lions. Like, that's really the best way I could put it. You could clearly see some of the youthful issues that Desmond Ridder was having in this game here. I feel like the team as a whole, just some of the youthful issues, but on top of that, the offensive line. What was it, like 7 sacks allowed for Desmond Ridder? And this was an offensive line that I was praising coming into this season here, but that was not a good look. Detroit's defensive front had its way against them. Defensively, solid outing. You held the Lions to 20 despite the lack of the real production you were able to get out of your offense, but overall just not a pretty game for the Falcons. I still believe in them. I think they're a really talented roster, but they are fairly young and inexperienced. So I think we're going to run into games like this, but Atlanta right now, I think based off of everything we're kind of seeing within the division, it's kind of their division to lose right now, especially now that Derek Carr's dealing with his AC joint injury. Things are kind of wide open in the NFC South, and I really like the Atlanta Falcons' chances right now. Their real only competition at this moment is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, especially because of the Derek Carr injury. At number 11, Pittsburgh Steelers getting a big victory here. I've got to say, I feel like the scoreline of the game that we saw between the Steelers and the Raiders was not really indicative of what that game really was. Obviously, late, it got a little bit close, but I mean, defensively, TJ Watt, unbelievable. I feel like even JJ Watt on social media just basically calling everyone out, letting them know, defensive player of the year guy right here, MVP. I mean, he is just an absolute force to be reckoned with, but the defense looked really good, giving Jimmy Garoppolo fits all game long. Offensively, clean game, solid game. Not anything really, to write home about, but there were some big plays here or there. This was one of the better play called games, I would say, and I'm curious to hear what Steelers fans have to say about that. So please, by all means, Steelers fans, let me know in the comment section down below. But I thought that play calling was a little bit better offensively for this team this week, and maybe that's just them being able to take advantage of a really poor Raiders team right now. But it was a much better performance, I would say, than what we've saw the first couple of weeks from the Steelers. Just a really complete game overall. But happy with where I have them right now. This is a team that you could maybe argue is a spot or two, maybe too high or too low. You have that conversation. This is kind of where I feel they are. At number 10, you have yourselves the Green Bay Packers, who, I mean, you could argue that they probably should have won their game last week against the Falcons and then probably should have lost this game this week against the Saints, but here they are on both sides of the coin. I've got to give credit where it's due for them to be able to come back, battle back from their issues, and win a football game that I really thought there was no chance of them winning. They were down 17-0. I picked the Saints to win that game, and then as soon as Derek Carr went down, defense went to work, shut things down for the Saints offensively. Offense was able to muster some stuff up. Hats off to Matt LaFleur for calling for the 2-point conversion on that go-ahead score there. That was massive for them because it ultimately led to them winning. Probably should have lost the game, though, here because realistically, you look at what happened, missed field goal at the end there as the defense kind of bent but didn't break, but ultimately ball falls in their favor. Game, W, set, match. Good for the Packers. In a really good spot right now. I know a lot of people are having the conversations of who's going to win the NFC North now. It's basically the Lions and the Packers. I don't really think the Vikings or the Chicago Bears are really in that conversation by any means at this point, especially not the Bears. But it's going to take kind of a miracle turnaround for the Vikings to start winning those games they keep losing. And then right now, I just think it really is Packers-Lions. And I can't wait for Thursday Night Football to see who takes the lead in that early race. And then at number 9, we're looking at the Baltimore Ravens here. Again, tough loss. I don't really know what to make of this. The injuries are starting to mount. And at this point, and I was reading a lot of people saying the same thing. You've got to question just the conditioning of this team and the amount of injuries that it feels like the Ravens get stacked up with every single year. And it's not like it's injury bug season. Like, no, it is like an injury bug half decade now at this point or more. It just feels like it's a recurring theme every single year. I don't know what the heck is going on with Baltimore, but injuries aside, just could not handle the Indianapolis Colts defense. That's probably my biggest takeaway there. And it's one of those things where the offense at times looks just a little dysfunctional. I almost feel like I want to see more. And I know the idea was to switch Baltimore into a more like traditional passing type of offense where, you can ground and pound still, but you're not relying on Lamar Jackson as much. I almost feel like they've pulled back a little too much on Lamar and took away what made him so special. Like, he's a good passer, but he's electric with his legs. Let's not try to just turn him into a pocket passing, a guy that can scramble when things break down. Like, just draw up some more design runs for him, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. I feel like this is a vastly different offense than what we've been seeing from Lamar Jackson through the first few years of his career. And now I like the direction they're heading, but let's try to just sprinkle in a little bit more of the Lamar Jackson running stuff, or just like some sort of design RPOs, whatever it may be. I want to see some more Lamar. I feel like that's what makes him special, is that threat, and he's just dropping back and passing a lot more than I feel like I'm personally used to seeing him do. Moving into the top 8, though, at number 8, we've got ourselves the Detroit Lions moving up in the power rankings with their big victory over the Atlanta Falcons. At number 7, I'm sitting on the Seattle Seahawks. At number 6, we're looking at the Dallas Cowboys. And then at number 5, Buffalo Bills working their way back up the board after a shocking steep drop in week 1 with their big shock loss to the Jets. But we'll get to them in a second. The Detroit Lions, like I had mentioned when I was talking about the Falcons, offensively, you did a really solid job. It wasn't anything too crazy. 20 points, really good showing by them, just kind of keeping the game in control, but it was really the defensive effort that just came to life. You have so much young talent over there in Detroit, and it's one of those things that it could potentially win you some games because the talent is really there. It could burn you in some games, and I feel like you kind of saw that in the Seattle Seahawks game. But this week is a prime example of that talent really flourishing and just taking advantage of another group that in the Atlanta Falcons offense is also young but very talented, where one side was going to get burned, and this time it was the Falcons, and the Lions defense looked really, really good in this matchup. I cannot praise what that front seven did. It was an absolute performance against that offensive line in Atlanta. So hats off to the Lions. If you could play defense like that the rest of the year and get back to that more high-powered offense we were seeing last season, especially when Jamison Williams comes off his suspension, things could get really crazy in Detroit. At number 7, the Seattle Seahawks, in a game that, another one of those, like, it probably looked a little bit closer than it actually was. I never really felt like the Seahawks were really in danger of losing this game, especially with Andy Dalton at the helm there. No discrediting to him by any means. He's a guy that's been in the NFL for quite some time now, but I never really took the Panthers as too much of a threat to the Seahawks in this matchup here. They got up to a pretty comfortable lead for the majority of the game here, but a strong continued win after what was like a really wild contest last week. You string together a couple of wins now. That first loss to the Rams, well into the rearview mirror at this point. You're moving into week 4 off of another W. This is a team that I don't necessarily know where I'm at with them right now. Like, I have them at 7, but if somebody thought that they probably should be a little bit lower, I would probably say, okay, let me hear your argument, because I might agree with you. I'm fine with them at number 7 right now, just because I believe in what they have talent-wise over there and what they're trying to do. It's just a matter of, can the defense get to where I think it should be this season? It's not quite there yet. The offense obviously looks really, really good, but the defense has just kind of been a little bit of a miss for me so far to this point, and I think they're a little too talented to be allowing the amount of points and yards they have so far this season. At number 6, the Dallas Cowboys. I have them dropping 5 spots here. And while I want to sit here and laugh at some of the Cowboys fans and whatnot, like everyone else is doing, I think you just kind of got caught up. That's kind of the way I look at it. That's as straight as I can put it with the Cowboys. Obviously coming off of the Trayvon Diggs injury, that's really deflating. And on top of that, there's just been so much conversation about how good this defense is and how poor the Arizona Cardinals are. And it was one of those it was a trap game. It really was a trap game. One that I didn't really consider a trap game because I didn't think that the Arizona Cardinals would be able to put up as quite the fight that they did. But it was a trap game, and you got caught in the trap. And that's the best I can probably put that. And the easiest I could probably put that for Dallas. Not really concerned about them. It's better to have a loss like this early in the season than late in the season, because that really, like, if you're, 11 wins deep into the season, and then you get a crazy loss like this to a Cardinals team that winds up being like, maybe 1-10 when you play them at that point, and they get a win like this over you, that's where you start to question yourself. This early, though, you can kind of write the loss off, just keep looking forward. And then at number 5, the Buffalo Bills, statement victory over a much lesser opponent in the Raiders here. Not really much else I have to say about them. Just a very dominant performance overall. Really liked what I saw from them from start to finish. You went into a game where I thought you were the very clear favorites. You were going up against a team that, yes, was 2-0, but had some wins over some poor teams at this point here, and you stomped your way to victory. So hats off to the Buffalo Bills. I think that they're finding a little bit more balance in their offense as well, which is going to be key to their success in the long run. If they can just keep Josh Allen from playing hero ball, defense is really good, offense is really good. Let's just make sure we're not putting the weight of the world on Josh Allen's shoulders. And then for the top 4 in the NFL to wrap things up here, and everyone always loves to see where these teams rank here at the very top of the NFL. At number 4, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. At number 3, the Kansas City Chiefs. At number 2, the Miami Dolphins. And at number 1, the San Francisco 49ers. So at number 4, the Philadelphia Eagles. I have them staying where they are right now. Not the prettiest win by any means, but they don't play pretty offense right now. They're, again, like I mentioned when I was talking about the Buccaneers, they beat teams in a submission, and I really like it. It's a really fun way to watch football because we're so used to the pass-happy league that we're in these days. The Eagles get it done differently, and I know some people might say, they can't match those other teams. I'm not worried about what they're doing offensively. I'm worried about those other teams running into this Philadelphia Eagles defense that, despite the losses they took this offseason, basically just refueled, re-upped, and are running it back again. They were an absolute menace, and some of their young rookies and second-year guys are already producing at outstanding clips. This is a team that is going to be good for a long time. What they have going on there and what GM Howie Roseman has been doing with Philadelphia is unbelievable. And I probably sound like I'm gobbling up the Eagles right now. Say what you want. I'm not an Eagles fan. I'm a Colts fan. But I respect the hell out of what's going on in Philadelphia. Plus, I like Nick Sirianni. He's a Colts guy. So maybe there's that too. Chiefs at number 3. What can you say? Absolute ass wiping of the Chicago Bears all over the field. It was just a complete rout from start to finish. Rolling the ankle, a little bit scary with Patrick Mahomes there. I can see why they opted to take him out when they did during the game rather than letting him run up the score the way the Miami Dolphins did over the Denver Broncos. But, I mean, it is what it is. The Chiefs clearly far outmatching the Chicago Bears. Not really shocked that was the result considering the amount of drama going around in Chicago right now. I know that Taylor Swift fever is kind of all over Kansas City right now. That'll be my one mention of that on this channel because I don't really care about all that nonsense and what Travis Kelce's doing in his spare time. I just care about what he's doing on the football field. But Chiefs dominating from start to finish. Another one of those games that you walk away from wiping your hands going, job well done, boys. At number 2, the Miami Dolphins. Now, if anyone's looking at this and they're saying, how on earth are the Miami Dolphins not number 1? It's because I think the 49ers are a more complete team. However, what the Dolphins are doing offensively right now is bananas. Absolute bananas. They did not even have Jalen Waddle in that game, and somehow they were able to just drop 70 and completely rip the soul out of Denver. I have not seen a more upsetting post-game interview than what Garrett Bowles put out during this week, and him talking about just dealing with nothing but losing since getting to Denver. Again, talk about ripping the soul out of a football team. 70 points. I never thought I would see something like that. And it just, I don't really know what to, like, what do you say? What do you say to that? Just holy cow, massive W. Defensively, completely curb stopping the Broncos as well. I mean, you let up a couple of plays here or there. I mean, the only real thing you let the Denver Broncos get done in that game was like Russell Wilson making some good completions to Courtland Sutton. That was like the only bright spot I could really find offensively out of Denver. But hats off to what Miami is doing over there. I'm very excited to see what's going on. And for anyone that thinks that this isn't important, something to keep in mind in these the early first, I want to say 4 to 6 weeks of the NFL season. If you're playing in Miami and it's hot, your team is screwed. They had the Denver Broncos cooking in the sun. I heard on the broadcast there was about a 15 to 20 degree difference between the Miami Dolphins sideline and the Denver Broncos sideline. That is something to keep in mind as long as the Dolphins are playing at home. It is a very real advantage, and the way they designed that canopy that they slapped on the Hard Rock Stadium is designed specifically to keep the Dolphins shaded because of the way the sun sets and keep their opposing team in the Florida sun throughout the entirety of their day games. So just something to keep in mind as we roll through the season. And then at number 1, of course, the San Francisco 49ers. From top to bottom, they are the most complete team in the NFL. I know that I was, going off about how good the Dallas Cowboys were last week, but after seeing them show some cracks in the armor, if there's one thing that I really, really love about the 49ers at this point right now, it is just that everyone is clearly bought in and nobody is, they are business. From Brock Purdy being the young gun that's leading this team right now on a very talented team altogether, from the defense being led by Nick Bosa and company that is just like slaughtering teams right now. It's incredible what they've been able to put together over there in San Francisco. You want to talk about hitting the lottery with the quarterback situation that you have over there, being able to move on from a quarterback that you spent 3 picks to get. It's just, you cannot take away from what San Francisco is doing right now. They keep winning convincingly, and even if it's a tighter game, they're still getting the job done like they did last week against the Rams. I mean, this is a scary, scary team right now. A 3-0 team that I don't really think is close to losing a matchup for quite some times. And I'm sure by me saying that, it'll be the kiss of death because, I spouted off about how good the Cowboys were last week, putting them at 1, and they went and lost their game to the Arizona Cardinals. But those are my power rankings going into week number 4. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on my power rankings. I would love to hear your power rankings and your thoughts and opinions on this past weekend's slate of games. But that is it for me. I appreciate it if you made it to the end of the video. I will see you all next time. Have a good one.